Color studies. As a beginner, you may be wondering, what are they? Are they worth making, or are they just a waste of time and materials? In this video, we will discuss all of that and more as I share a color study I made before one of my paintings. If you have ever wondered about or wanted to make a color study, stick around and enjoy this full beginner's guide to color studies. Let's get started. I'm starting on a 4.5 by 6 inch piece of canvas paper. I toned it with burnt sienna thinned with mineral spirits, and I'll be drawing in a rough sketch with burnt sienna as well. I'm using a number 0 flat brush for the sketch and a number 4 flat brush for the rest of the painting. For paint, I'm using titanium white, lemon yellow, yellow medium, vermilion, alizarin crimson, and ultramarine blue. After I have the large masses drawn in, I start by adding in the darkest masses. Specifically, I start with the darkest spot that I want to be my focal point. It's easier to layer lighter paint onto darker paint. From the focal point, I work on all the green areas of foliage and shadow. The sun was coming from behind the trees and slightly to the right, so the cores of the trees were especially dark. The tops and sides, where the leaves are thinner, allow sunlight to bounce around more freely, so they will be a lighter green. I like to have variation in my shadow colors, so I have a mix of blue-greens and mid-tone greens. Besides the grasses and trees, my other areas in shadow are the path and the stone retaining wall on the left. I wanted the path to be a light purplish blue and the stone wall to be a dark desaturated orange. I liked that this painting would mainly be featuring the secondary colors, green, orange, and purple. I thought that would give the painting a nice balance. A color study is a smaller practice painting made before a painting to study the idea, composition, values, and color relationships as a way to discover and correct any problems before attempting the final painting. Color studies are not meant to be perfect. They're there to prevent unexpected problems and excessive reworking when creating the final painting, which could result in muddy colors or overworked brushstrokes. Color studies provide a roadmap to follow. Everyone benefits from making a color study, not just beginners. There will always be something you can learn from, improve upon, or will surprise you when you arrange a new composition in color for the first time. Color studies are not very big because they don't need to be. You will be able to tell if colors look good together or not on a small scale. Again, this is a study, not the final painting. It's a rough draft. It doesn't need to be big enough or grand enough to be hung up on a wall. I painted this color study on a 4.5 inch by 6 inch piece of canvas paper that I cut out. I like these dimensions because it's small enough that I can paint this study quickly, and it's consistent with the 3:4 ratio I take my reference photos in. I took this reference photo while walking on a nature trail in my town. I had the idea that I wanted to walk on this trail until I felt like I had enough reference photos to make a series of 3 paintings. I think I took roughly 100 photos, and after reviewing them, I had 3 or 4 that had the potential to make good paintings. So stay tuned for those as well. This photo stood out to me. In the exact spot where the path curves up and over the hill and turns a corner, there's a strong patch of sunlight right in front of a dark shadow in a tree. This struck me as an obvious focal point with the strong contrasting light and darks touching, and the path leads you right there as well. Like the shadow colors, I started with the light color that would be my focal point, the area of grass on the hill that's a brilliant green shining in the sunlight. You'll see me test colors by adding a dab of paint onto the canvas paper, and then I decide if it needs to be darker, lighter, cooler, warmer, or more desaturated. I darken and desaturate that light green slightly to show that the light areas of the trees are different from the grass on the hill. I mix up a light orangish pink for the path and stone wall and sunlight. I decided to make the sky a similar pinkish orange because I wanted to balance the cool dark areas with more light and warmth. I knew I wanted to take some artistic liberties and change some elements of the scene. My biggest problem with the photo was the tree trunks in the top left corner. They lead the eye right off the page, so I opted to remove them from my painting. I also planned to leave out the dark section of tree on the very right. I thought it was distracting and unimportant. I also thought the newly revealed sky on the left should be balanced out with more sky on the right. However, once I made this color study, I learned that leaving out this tree on the right would be a mistake. With all of the light areas blocked in, I go back and start adjusting the shadows. After which, you've guessed it, I'll adjust and add detail to the light areas. I like to alternate between shadow and light sparingly because I think it's easier to work on them separately one at a time. When I'm working on the shadows, I'm only thinking of mixing cool colors, and when I'm working on the light areas, I'm only thinking of mixing warm colors. Keeping these areas very different is crucial to achieving a true sunlight effect. I add some mid-toned yet still cool greens to the shadow areas of the foliage to give a sense of dimension. I add some blue-greens to indicate darker areas in the areas of shadow. I try to make my marks so they follow the contours of the three-dimensional masses they are representing. This is especially how I try to communicate the slope of the hill. I decide the path is too dark, so I add some white to lighten it up. I also decided the stone wall was too warm and could use some desaturating. Simply changing these two things I think did a lot to help the painting, which is exactly why we do color studies in the first place, to figure these things out ahead of time. Like in the shadows, I begin to slightly vary the colors in the light areas, adding more light blue and yellow greens. I hit the sunlit foliage again to make sure my focal point really pops. I also began to experiment with adding some dappled light. I wanted to place the dappled light on the path strategically to lead the eye around the painting and towards the focal point. Dappled light is an excellent tool to manipulate and help strengthen your composition. You definitely don't need to paint the exact patterns you see in your reference photo. I also add some sky holes into the foliage to make the tree masses a bit more convincing and interesting. As I'm adding the dappled light, I'm beginning to notice a problem with the painting. By removing the trees to the right, it no longer seems convincing that this large area would be in shadow. What is causing the shadow? What is the light passing through that creates these light patterns on the path, the wall, and the hill? I decide that for the painting to make sense, I need to add back in the tree on the right. I can still leave out the trees that were in the top left corner because the sun is coming more from the right. Those trees would be casting shadows to the left of the canvas. After adding in that tree, the dappled light and shadow makes sense to my eye. The trees to the right were needed after all. By helping you identify and fix problems on a small scale rather than a large canvas, color studies actually save you time and materials. Bigger problems would take more time and more materials to fix. You can make multiple color studies and compare them. You can make one that is more warm, one that's more cool, or one that has more value contrast, or one that has less value contrast. You can make as many color studies as you need until you find the right version to develop fully for your painting. You might even decide that the idea isn't ready to be painted yet, and more sketching and rethinking might be in order. So what do you think? Will you be making a color study before your next painting? If you liked this video or found it interesting, be sure to like and subscribe. I'll be putting out new drawing or painting videos soon. Thank you for watching and have fun painting!